The Witch is a masterclass in tone, atmosphere, and creeping dread. The predicament of a banished family of Puritans trying to survive in the 17th century New England wilderness is a recipe for horror, regardless of who or what is lurking in the forest. I love how the story asks the audience the question, is The Witch just a projection of a test of faith? Should we trust what we're witnessing on the screen? And then the film leans into the God-fearing supernatural and folklore becomes all too real, splashed with blood, hallucinations, mutilations, and death. Something you may notice about this list, which only occurred to me as I was writing the script, is that I'm more drawn to psychological horror, the horror of the mind, more than monsters, torture porn, and jump scares, although there will be plenty of pants shitting and people getting their feet sawn off with piano wire. Don't Look Now from 1973 hits that emotional despair, that inescapable pounding of grief and loss. You know, that kind of horror. Adapted from a Daphne du Maurier short story, this is a film about a couple trying and failing in many ways to cope with the drowning, the death of their daughter. I find the imagery and the mood creepy as hell, even in the rare moments of joy and happiness. You feel that this pain is always too much to bear, and the wife in particular is about to disappear over the edge. There's something truly disturbing about the way the brain sometimes copes with grief, that lack of control that can lead down the very darkest of paths. And Don't Look Now absolutely nails it. Gaspar Noé is one of my favourite filmmakers of all time. He always manages to subvert the method, the structure, the very definition of what a feature film actually is. I know he's Argentinian, but it's French extreme postmodern cinema. Irreversible from 2002 is a story told across about a dozen scenes, either genuinely or made to look like long, continuous one-shots. And they're shown to the audience in reverse, not running backwards, but chronologically, from last scene to first scene. A little bit like Memento. The premise is that a couple in love, a real couple in love at the time, Monica Bellucci and Vincent Cassel, attend a party in Paris, accompanied by Monica's ex-boyfriend. To cut a long story very short, Monica leaves the party early, alone, and then she's attacked, savagely raped and beaten and left unconscious on the ground. When Vincent and the ex-boyfriend find out, they hunt down the rapist to a nightclub where it kicks off and we get some of the most disturbing violence ever seen on screen. Of all the films on this list, even counting my number 5, which is a very difficult watch, this is the one which must carry a warning, even if you do love horror to death. The point of showing us this 9-minute long, unbroken shot rape of a beautiful, helpless woman is to pull us down into the gutter so that we associate or even empathize with the use of ultra-violent revenge. The genius of telling this tale backwards is that we get to see the effect before the cause, and that insists that we look at things in a different light. So by the end of the film, Monica Bellucci is okay. No harm has yet been done. It's a love story. She's an image of beauty and sexual desire. It's a happy ending. And then you remember the arrow of time doesn't work like that. Can't we just stay here at the end, at the beginning? No.
Greetings from the future. These videos take a lot of time and effort and a little bit of money to make. Money which we don't have. You can watch all of our videos for free on YouTube, or if you would like to support the channel, you can use Buy Me a Coffee, which is an online tipping service. Get yourself a t-shirt or a mug or some socks at the merch store. But best of all, we have a Patreon. You'll gain access to our exclusive Discord, home of the world's greatest read-alongs, the podcast Radio Death Cult, and of course, you can tell your friends and family that you've joined a death cult. Links in the description and on our YouTube homepage. Thank you so much.
My number 10 is another exploration of loss and grief and pain. What is wrong with me? It's The Invitation from 2015. This film has a massive twisty spoiler which recontextualizes everything that you've just watched, but I'll let you discover that for yourselves. It's about a couple that are invited to a dinner party hosted by the guy's ex-wife and her new husband in the house that he used to share with this ex-wife, the same house where the child the guy and his ex had died in an accident. And that's a lot of baggage. The dinner party itself is awkward, to say the very least. The host seems to have gathered this group together to convince them to join this support group, which sounds suspiciously like a death cult. And then we experience this delicious intertwining of paranoia, resurfacing suppressed emotions, flashbacks of overdoses and dead children. It's heavy, it's dense, it's shocking, but how much of it is real? I've said too much. Or have I? Here's one I don't mind spoiling. At the end of The Wicker Man, Edward Woodward gets burned alive in a giant wicker man. I do admit that apart from that one sequence, there's nothing that visually horrifying. But that's why we all love this film. It's that uncomfortable feeling of the small community that doesn't like outsiders sticking their nose into their business. We think we're watching a policeman investigate the disappearance of a missing child. Will the horror come from finding out what happened to her? No, you were just a lamb to the slaughter, a sacrifice to ensure a good crop of apples. I simply have to include Hereditary. I know it's very new, but I think horror has been going through a bit of a purple patch the last 10, 15 years. But this is here on merit, not recency bias. This is yet another one of those stories where the end sequence makes you think back over what you've just watched to make sense of the theme and the motivations. But along the way to discovering what was hiding in plain sight, we have a shocking, creepy, dark tale about a family in despair. Hereditary, well, Ari Aster has taken loads of well-trodden horror cliches and made them his own, with a little help from a fantastic cast. It also features one of my absolute favourite things in scary films. People, characters, things hiding somewhere in the frame. And when you do spot them, it's like they were spying on you the whole time. Like through the TV screen. This one took me at least a couple of watches to convince me of its genius, but now I love it to bits. It's Audition, 1999, by Takashi Miike. Just going over the wiki page to help me write this paragraph, I was like, the police found an extra tongue, an extra ear, and 3 extra fingers. Vomit into a dog bowl, which he hungrily consumes. A man with prosthetic feet who tortured her by burning her legs. She lives in a tiny apartment containing little more than a large sack and a telephone. Inserts needles into his abdomen and below his eyes. You see, that's why I was very hesitant at first, because is it actually any good? Where's the art? What's the point? Where's the accomplishment in torture? But Audition is great. It's really great. It's so much more than a maniac doing despicable things. Just about. Don't panic, normal service has resumed. We're back to falling into depression, paranoia, and psychological darkness. It's Possession. I champion the hell out of this film. I don't think enough people have experienced the pain and suffering that comes along with a couple falling out of love and having a young child caught in the crossfire. That's basically the whole story. It's very simple on the surface. Isabella Arjani wants to divorce Sam Neill, and it's very messy. However, the film commits to some sort of dark symbolism and metaphor that really caught me off guard. Who is seeing the doppelganger? Is that Lovecraftian monster an actual real monster? And what the hell is that liquid leaking out of that woman? And why is she screaming like that? I'm scared. Possession is tremendously dark and oppressive, and it's an uncomfortable, exhausting, but brilliant watch. Okay, I need to make an important distinction now. If I was grading these films by how much horror, how scared I was, how much they made me feel, rather than subjectively how good they actually are as films, this would be my number one, no question. It's Martyrs. The original French, not the American remake, please. First of all, Martyrs somehow covers most of the horror bases and executes all of them with a flourish, all in the same film. It has blood and guts. It has nerve-tingling, tactile, ooh, that's nasty. It has monsters hiding under the bed, psychological distress, revenge, self-harm, murder, and torture. Lots of torture, but torture with a purpose. And that makes all the difference. From the very first shot of the little girl escaping and running away from a slaughterhouse where she's been held captive and tortured for the best part of a year, to the last second of the film, which will really make your head spin, and everything in between, I was on edge. I was tingling. And regardless of the content, just ignore the horror for a second. The actual pacing of the film is a masterpiece of dramatic design. It's like 5 short films glued together that become much more than the sum of its parts. Director Pascal Laugier said he wanted to make a film about pain. How can he express what pain is and what pain means in its many guises? He utterly succeeds with Martyrs. I'm very aware that I love something that I should really hate, or at least be very uncomfortable with. And that is an amazing talent from Pascal, not me. In contrast, my number 4 is Easy to Love. It's a perfect film with no guilt attached at all, apart from the fact that it's about an 800-year-old vampire who has essentially brainwashed a 12-year-old boy into harvesting bodies for it. It's let the right one in. This is not only a great horror, it's also a great drama, a coming-of-age story. And dare we call this a love story? I think so. That's part of the joy of this film. You feel sympathy for the monster. Ellie, the vampire, connects in an emotional way with Oscar, the 12-year-old boy. But it's also a film that constantly reminds us that the best vampire films are dripping with vampire lore. No matter what the subtext and all this ancient bodies in the modern world twist thing that we get, the vampire needs to feed. Sunlight can kill, and they don't like garlic bread. I don't know why Jaws has this question mark hanging over it regarding its horror credentials. Maybe it's because it's so famous. Horror rarely gets to be a proper blockbuster, or maybe it's because it's so believable. People really do get eaten by sharks. But for a film that I've seen more than any other film ever made, apart from Watership Down of course, it always delivers the terror. It's impeccably directed by Steven Spielberg. I wish he made more films that didn't rely on CGI and delivered drama and tension. And maybe it was a happy accident that the model shark didn't work properly and they had to fall back on the idea, the unseen horror beneath the waves, to scare the audience. Whatever, it completely works. Don't go into the water. Don't watch the sequels. My number 2 is... really? How is this not number 1? All right, fair enough. My number 2 is John Carpenter's The Thing. This has the holy trinity of horror ingredients: the location, the psychological aspect, and the monster, and they all feed off and enhance each other. Completely isolated at a research station in Antarctica, nobody is coming to save you. It's the law of the jungle, the icy, cold, snowy jungle. And that feeling never leaves your brain. When we find out what the monster actually is and how it mimics humans, it's way more than just a killer alien. It's heightened paranoia. It's much more than just a physical threat. So who can you trust? Can you even trust yourself? And it doesn't hurt that The Thing is this amazing, pus-covered, multi-limbed, veiny, tentacled whirlwind of alien gore. Come on! And from a filmmaking point of view, the performances, Carpenter's direction, the soundscape, and of course those practical effects all converge to make something very special. Speaking of isolated locations and horror coming at you from different angles, and the art and craft of filmmaking being the cherry on top, my number 1 horror movie of all time is The Shining. So why does this film beat all of the other horror movies to the top spot? What gives it that X factor? Well, it's a little bit of everything. I think Stanley Kubrick took Stephen King's excellent novel and quite rightly extracted the parts that would work best as a visual story. He wasn't a fan of the ghost story aspect, so leaned heavily towards ambiguity when it comes to the other characters in the Overlook Hotel. Are they real? Or are they manifestations of cabin fever or something else? The cast is perfect, especially Jack Nicholson, of course. I could watch him in absolutely anything, but I think this tortured failure of a man is one of his very best performances. The visual feast for the eyes, the whole Kubrick aesthetic is an absolute masterpiece. This is how you frame and block. This is how you use negative space. And this is how you make the mundane appear creepy. And then wham! A corridor cascading with blood. If we draw parallels with The Thing, both have the perfect atmosphere, both have stellar filmmakers at the helm, both have layers and degrees of horror. They even both have that question mark hanging over the final scene, but The Shining has more of a fuzzy outline. Where has the horror come from? I feel like the narrator has been unreliable. I still don't know who or what the monster actually was. What do you mean you've always been the caretaker? I love that.